side.
I think I was mentioned first. A pleasure to meet everybody. My name is Pavel. I'm the co-founder and CTO at the company called Founder and Lightning, where we, in principle, help early stage businesses or the businesses who are what we call in the non-sexy industries that requires a transformation of their tech and product towards the economy of the 21st century, driven by the technology and product thinking. And I've been helping and supporting founders and startups for the last 20 years, running technical product teams and building businesses, especially in this early stage, from zero to Series A. A pleasure to be here.
And my name is Martin Ectes. Happy to meet you all. I'm a multi-award winning innovator. I have a fractional consultancy where I work around the future of AI. I've done all type of like next generation technology in the past, from like blockchain and IoT and cloud in 2010 and so on. Lately, I'm also the CEO of Green Tech AI, and we're building an army of digital workers with that based on an open source platform, and sort of think about it as the lovable for digital workers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jock Basutil. I've been in product for about 20 years or so, and I work as a product coach freelance and as a freelance head of product. I typically work with companies in a coaching capacity, advisory capacity, or even hands-on as an interim member of their team. And I'm also the author of the book, The Practitioner's Guide to Product Management.
Hi everyone, I'm Eugenio Galiotto, product-led fractional CTO, senior agentic engineer, and serial founder. Currently, I lead the tech teams across USA, UK, Australia, and Italy with relevant agentic AI applications in production in fashion and real estate. I've also been part of accelerators like Entrepreneur First and On Deck. I co-founded the VC scale startup in the Bay Area and founded various other startups in different industries. And I'm here to improve your way to build impactful stuff.
Amazing. Now that is a golden team. Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Right here, how about this? How about we start with a do and don't? I'm sure you've seen plenty of those, stuff that founders do well, but also not quite so well. So perhaps if we can maybe again start in the same way that we did the introduction. So Pavel, Martin, Jock, and then Eugenio. Please don't use the same do and don't, the same logic for both do and don'ts. And if we can think of stuff that is really important, especially early stage, or tech or both for that matter. Mr. Kaminsky?
Sure, I will try. Okay, so why don't I start with don't, and the thing that we are seeing a lot with our early stage founders starting from zero or starting from the position where they are. Like for us, one of the crucial things is don't try to build crazy long plans and kind of a roadmaps, because in most of the cases the products that we build now are really tricky when they meet the reality, which means trying to plan for extremely long term outside of having a vision is really hard. So don't expect that your beautifully crafted Excel spreadsheet with 500 features in the correct order is going to be what you will be doing. So that will be my one advice. There is a level of predictability and forward looking, but I think most of the founders starts with, in 2029, this is how my business is going to look like. I think that's way too optimistic and very rarely meet the reality. From the perspective of do, I will leave the guys to talk about the customers and so on. Like I'm starting to look at the perspective of what to do is do much less that you think you have to do, but do it in the way that I really like the latest quote from Walt Disney, that people can feel perfection, which means try to do dramatically less, but in the world of plenty of things being built, try to be great or outrageously great at one thing. Hopefully that one thing sorts out the biggest problem, but being great at one thing is going to be the differentiator for you. So do that. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about like a don't that I did wrong and how I then did it different. So in 2024, I built a sort of app that like was focused on all companies that had like and not enough functionality to warrant their own app. And the old app was a terrible failure because I couldn't find the right customers for it. So then in 2025, I started working with AI customers, trying to find what problem they had in common, and then build the Green Tick AI platform based on their feedback. And I'm still building, but the problem is it's already sold now to several customers. So the thing here is work first with customers, then make what they need, and definitely use AI for it. It's a lot better to generate revenue.
So I would say do focus persistently, because being unfocused is one of the most dangerous elements to like to not move ahead. And in terms of don't, do not lose momentum. So keep making progress regardless of everything, in a way that makes your mind always involved in what you're doing. And you will naturally find a way to optimize around it. Of course, with AI, with other tools, with other ways of doing things, but at least always be involved and don't lose momentum.
So I've been watching probably too much TV at the moment. So my do is focus on what if scenarios. So think about the most critical things that affect your success or potentially your failure, and kind of game out alternative scenarios, such as if you're overly reliant on LLMs and that kind of thing, what would happen if the cost triples, quadruples over the course of the next few years, and game out those scenarios and see how that, whether your business model still stands up. And then as a don't, I would suggest something I've seen over and over is don't assume that you can build it and they will come. So if you watch The Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, the thing is, it's easy to get wrapped up in the great thing you're building, and there's a cognitive bias called the IKEA effect, where you get really invested in something that you've built yourself. But the problem is that you can get so wrapped up in building something that's really great that you kind of forget to check whether anyone actually needs the thing or has the problem that you're solving with that. So don't assume you can build it and they will come.
That is some amazing advice. Thank you very much to all four of you. Right here, we've only got 44 minutes to go, and I've got a few questions to go through, but it would be nice to have some questions live. So please don't be shy. If you're tuning in via the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or hopefully Instagram again, I'm still unable to check whether we're live there or not. Nevertheless, if you're on the live streams, please be aware that unfortunately we can't monitor your questions there live. So if you do want to ask us any questions, you'll have to join us here on our call on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. And it doesn't matter if you're working from a shared office in Shoreditch or walking your dog in Surrey, or perhaps changing baby nappies in Bristol, or maybe having lunch in Liverpool, or making lunch in Glasgow. You can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. There's links on all those live streams, but if not, you can always check out our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. You scroll down a little bit, you'll find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 176. You click join. It's a quick registration on Luma. There, you'll find today's link. On the other hand, once you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. If, however, your questions today are not on product and tech, please save them for the other conversations we run. Mondays it's talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can RSVP to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. And actually, what you also might want to do is when you go onto our site, at the top and bottom of that website, you can see a WhatsApp icon. If you click on that, you'll be able to join our WhatsApp community of founders, investors, operators, and of course, our second to none expert panelists. I am going to read the question that was sent in to us, but otherwise, if you've got any questions on product and tech, please feel free to drop them here in the chat yourself. So, okay, that's an interesting one. She says, everyone expects me to get this right as we can't afford to mess up. I'm the more tech savvy out of three, I'm assuming co-founders, of a marketplace in Birmingham that handles real-time inventory updates from vendors. We need a monitoring system that alerts us when updates fail, but we're new to this level of infrastructure. How can we implement a login setup that detects these issues early? And which tools would you help us track inventory data flow and prevent inconsistencies? I'm assuming they have some kind of SaaS that deals and helps retailers and others deal with inventory, right? Oh, damn, why didn't you join us live? So I'm guessing the problem is, when updates fail in terms of getting alerts for that inventory, what do you do? And how can you make sure that data flow in the infrastructure works right? Is that right, team? How about this? Let's start with Martin, then Eugenio, then Jock, and last but not least, Pavel. If you can, and I know this is a bit difficult because the person's not here, but
yeah,
if there's anything you can add.
So there's several monitoring systems you have that actually also available by cloud providers. And most of these monitoring systems have something called alerts. And you basically can define when to trigger such an alert. So if there's a problem with infrastructure, you can then trigger an alert. You could see if you could automatically resolve it, sometimes restarting a server, or handling an incorrect input or whatever can resolve it. Sometimes it cannot. So then you have like solutions where you get pinged and woken up perhaps at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and fix something. Um, it basically the question gives away that like in infrastructure automation and DevOps, they should invest a little bit more time to understand what's possible, because if they have a SaaS, that's going to be a very critical aspect of their business.
Well, I will say that there's not much to update on the previous answer. The key point is that all of this is already battle tested in terms of techniques, and so it's about having one, of course, proper freelance doing just DevOps, fixing basically all of this. But it's battle tested. It's not pioneering, so it's just about choosing the right one.
I don't have anything to add specifically, but maybe particularly the other panelists who are doing this kind of thing within their own startups or for their clients. Could you maybe give some examples of the kind of things that you use to do this kind of thing in your context?
Good point, Jock. Thank you. Pavel?
So depends on the infrastructure. At this moment, so for example, if we are on Heroku, which is a platform as a service, they've got multiple reports if something goes wrong. So you can just set it up on Heroku, and those are just like the part of the platform. We use a combination of things from the perspective of controlling bugs, defects, and so on. There are tools like Rollbar, Sentry, and just like the guy said, there's like plenty of them. So just type in your infrastructure plus your languages to find those tools. They work really, really well. It's just like adding Google Analytics to your website or your system, and you start capturing more and more. Also, the GCP platforms, they've got, so it's not like alerts as an add-on. It's just like they're built into the thing. You just have to configure them. So if someone logs into your database structure, you can set it up that it tells you every single time a transaction fails and so on. My view would be just a little bit more from the perspective of how to think about is that we always say move the quality to the left-hand side of the process, which means don't try to catch the updates when they fail somewhere in your database. I am sure that they are failing in your database because of some reason earlier in the flow, which means you might actually build a better input of the data or a better checks of wherever the data is coming. So I don't know, if you're uploading a CSV, do not allow to upload a bad CSV into the system. Or if you're allowing the people to manually put this in, make sure that your form on the front end constrain them enough so they can do the job, but actually it forces the data formats and everything else to be in a correct shape and fashion. And the other thing that we've seen work really, really well is like sometimes you don't know how smart and how creative people are doing things in your system. So stuff like, for example, LogRocket, which allows you to see and view this session anonymously about how the user clicks and what they do, might help you find out where the issues are coming from rather than just responding to them happening. And the last one is make those issues extremely visible and extremely like in front of everybody, which means we do what we call like a zero bug policy, which means every single time a bug or a defect, or in this case, a wrong update failed, it goes to our ticketing system automatically. And the development team has a rule that they are allowed and they should pick that particular ticket before working on the new functionality, which means that's what we call a zero bug system, because they can triage and fix it straight away. So it's like making it visible, moving it to the left, and watching other users how creatively they destroy your system are the things to stop the issues from happening rather than just to monitor the outcome of it. That would be my advice.
Oh, that is amazing. Thank you very much for that. Sorry, did somebody want to say something?
No, I didn't want to add anything more. I think that was very well explained.
Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. I'll put another question in the chat and I'll read it out loud for the live streams. This is a femtech founder. She's based in Leeds, pre-seed, used to be a midwife. Problem. We created an app that helps expectant mothers track pregnancy health metrics and access prenatal care advice. The question I have is that we're struggling with how to present data to expectant mothers in a way that it's easy to understand but medically accurate. Should we invest more in creating simple user interfaces with explanations or focus on integrating medical professionals into the platform for real-time advice? I'm guessing question 2, how do we ensure that we're providing up-to-date evidence-based health information? Maybe on this, we can start with Jock, then Martin, then Pavel, and last but not least, Eugenio.
Yeah, happy to. So from a product perspective, things that immediately sprung to mind are starting with the kind of fundamental principles, and I'm sure you already are doing, which is how can we minimize the risk of harm to the expectant mothers. So clearly, when giving medical advice, particularly in a scenario where you don't necessarily have full diagnostic capability, I guess the challenge here is to ensure that what advice you do give is not potentially going to cause harm, either through inaccurate advice or absence of advice. So to combat that, I think you need to have both a very well designed and researched with representative users thinking about the possible range of abilities and so on, and range of understanding of the people in your audience, and go out and research that very carefully. I think you also need to ensure that you have an excellent content designer who can make sure that the information you do present, whether verbal, visual, or otherwise, is absolutely clear and unambiguous. And I think the third thing is, obviously, you say you have a midwife background yourself, is to make sure that your medical kind of basis for the advice you're giving is as clinically sound as you can make it. So those are the things I would think about. Thinking about it like a a government service. So my background, I used to work in government on some of the services there, and there the challenge is simply being able to accommodate the broad diversity of potential people accessing the service, and making sure that anybody from any level of understanding will be able to get the right result, and in this case a safe result from using your product or service. So I think, yeah, just reiterating that tantamount has to be user safety, and making sure that you do all the appropriate safeguards to do that as you go along.
Thank you very much. I think we said Martin.
Yeah. So if you want to nowadays see if users understand a simple user interface, go to things like lovable.dev and generate different designs virtually in minutes, and then show them to different users and ask them, what do you understand here? Can you tell me what's clear, what's not clear, and so on, and look over their shoulder how they would click through a click-through version of your app. And as such, you very quickly will learn what it is they understand and what it is they don't. So making simple user interfaces is a lot easier now with AI. Should you use simple user interfaces or a medical professional is actually a business decision. Is there something where you can like show some simple information and then have like medical professionals available that like are a premium service? If customers value that and would pay for that, that makes sense. If you just have a business that doesn't warrant that, then like you might have to go to the simple user interface. And then, like, how do you update the information? Well, it's unclear from what was described here. That's why I would always suggest people join the call so we can ask questions. But it's unclear where this information is coming from. Are you reading this from sensors? And can you get up-to-date information, always validate that that information was the latest? Or is this something that the user inputted, and then as such, you need to continuously keep on asking if like things might have changed? But it's not clear enough to help you on that aspect, unfortunately.
Yeah. Pavel, I think we said, oh, Jane, it doesn't matter either of you.
Yeah, I can go next. So the key aspect here is to understand whether this is an agentic app or not. So for example, I'm reading real-time advice, which I'd expect to be done by an AI, by an LLM. And so the very first principle here is that the app needs to be usable and understandable. So the UX UI comes first, even before the completeness of the data. You can have like 3 data points out of 10, but these 3 are very readable. They are impactful, maybe the most impactful ones, and it makes sense to invest in there. Then there's the aspect of the agentic flow. So if you have an agentic app, this is a bit different because you have more freedom in terms of how you can interact with the user. Because instead of being a fixed button, a fixed text form or whatever, it becomes a conversation. So every time you can refine the conversation in a way that's transparent from the user perspective, but that's meaningful to you. So you know which points you want to collect and which advices you want to give, and you know that you need to refine the conversation flow that way. So basically, first point, maximum focus on the UX UI. If it's unusable, it's just useless. Second point, if it's an agentic flow, you need to combine the agentic flow with the UX UI and refine the conversation, like the, of course, prompt and the agentic stuff. And maybe you want to start with a fraction of all of the metrics you want to collect, as long as you can provide real value on those, and then you can start improving from them.
Yeah, that's superbly interesting and a great advice from everyone. I would just add, and I've been recently on a battle of how we in principle display the dashboards and information to our founders, how their businesses are doing, and it's exactly the same problem. How do we display the data to people that it is the founder here used the word simple, but it's like understandable, that you can make certain decisions based on it. And I went into like the rabbit hole of trying to figure it out. It's like the crucial thing on the example that is brought up here is like, I think that the security of the user and the not causing harm is the crucial part. So whatever you do, if you are trying to manipulate the data, don't display it correctly, just don't. It's better not to show it than cause harm. There are a few other rules about like the data excellence, let's call it, and that's not my thoughts. Those are like, there are experts in the domain. There is really cool books by the guy called Edward Tufte or Tufte. I don't know how to say his name, but like very powerful ways how to create the dashboards and how to present information. And he talks about like always shows the data, which sounds obvious, but in a lot of cases, people just like augment it or make it very invisible from the eye of the user. There is a statement of never distorting the data to the audience. And if you watch any news currently and someone says, well, the budget goes up or the spending goes down or the level of something goes up, there is always a way of, well, has it been normalized against other factors that are happening? Because you can very quickly distort the data in principle on the dashboards, and I'm sure that you can distort the data of the medical things as well. There is a very interesting aspect of displaying the data, which he kind of mentioned, of like a data versus the amount of ink that is required to be used to present this data, and kind of the less ink, or in our case pixels, are being used versus the data amount that the information is kind of showing. It's the good thing. If you've got plenty of stuff that kind of makes the data less visible, then it is much more difficult for the audience to read it. So like as an advice to this person, it's like, one, you can experiment plenty, you have to be safe and secure, you can get the advice from the medical professionals. There are ways to display data in a better and more useful way. It just requires attention to details. And again, the moment we as humans see a data representation of something and you're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, you feel that perfection, it will be very, very obvious. If it's not, keep digging, keep searching, keep asking questions, keep looking at it from different perspective, keep asking what people don't see. There is also the tools for like heat maps, so you can see where the people are clicking on your data, or where their mouse goes and so on, what becomes important. There is plenty of things to do that. It just requires a certain level of attention, and I don't think so there are easy answers to the question what matters or how to display things. It just needs time. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much to all four of you gentlemen. That was brilliant. What have we got now? We've got 23 minutes to go, so we've got time for a few more questions. It looks like we've got a few free riders today. I can see some people on our YouTube and LinkedIn. If you do want to ask us any questions, please come and join us live. No one's going to think of you any less or more by asking questions. Actually, if you ask questions, I'm sure you'll be seen in a different light. But nevertheless, if you do want to join and ask questions, you'll have to go to our site, startuptoscaleup.club, because we can't monitor your questions via the live streams. And then when you go there, scroll down a little bit, you'll find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 176. You click join. It's a quick registration on Luma. There you'll find today's link. And through there, then you can join us on our audio-only call here on Microsoft Teams. Being audio-only means that you can tune in and join us from anywhere via any platform or device. Then simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. So question. Agritech founder in Norwich, seed family farming background. Question, we're building a platform to help farmers monitor soil health using AI. How can we decide whether to host our AI models on a cloud platform or deploy them locally on the farm's devices? What are the pros and cons of each approach in terms of performance, scalability, and internet connectivity in rural areas? I think we've had a few similar questions from farmers. I'm guessing this is, but again, if we live in such a bubble, so it's hard, if you're not in that industry, it's hard for me to understand whether this is a common issue or something that often happens. But I'm only basing it on the fact that I think we've received a few questions from farming tech lately about this, the difference between clouds and physical devices. Right, maybe we can start with Eugenio, and then Jock, then Pavel, and last but not least, Martin. What would you do here? And if you can elaborate a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, so the very first question is whether we are talking about large language models or we are talking about traditional neural networks, so deep learning models. The difference is that, of course, the inference of large language models locally requires big hardware or in general big trade-offs to performance, like quantization, pruning, and many other optimizations. So let's say that we are talking about deep learning models, but well, you can decide that based on how cheap the hardware to run them is, and then you can have like these this network of devices which represent a cost, represent logistics, and they need to be upgraded. So maintenance perspective is of course like takes more effort in general. So it's not the best solution. I think that in general, in some cases, it could be easier to solve the internet issues first. So imagine that we now have like satellite internet connection and stuff like that. So I will try to solve the infrastructure one and keep everything in the cloud, at least at the beginning, just to validate that everything works and make the operation smoother. If we are talking about large language models or large vision models that require hundreds of millions or billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of parameters, it's crazy expensive to run them on cloud, sorry, on premise in the farmer's place. Even if you have like NVIDIA Jetson and local devices like this, the truth is that it's probably not worth the effort. It's way better to start anyway with the cloud solutions, improve the connectivity where it's possible, and start from there. So it really depends on your case, but in both cases, I will start by fixing the connectivity issues with the, for example, the satellite internet, but locally it can even be something with LoRa, depending on your hardware skills, of course. And then later I would optimize on on-premise solutions.
So I guess I won't speak necessarily to the technical implementation, but what I would say is consider where the constraints in the system are. So, for example, if the primary constraint, as you seem to be alluding to, is internet connectivity, then think about how that constrains the design of any potential solution. So, for example, is it that you have intermittent connectivity or that kind of thing, or is it that you have reliable connectivity but at a low bandwidth, or those kind of things? Then understanding what that constraint is informs the design of what is possible. So, for example, if you know that you have intermittent connectivity, then whatever you build has to be able to cope with being intermittently on and offline. Yeah, regardless of what models and where they live and that kind of thing. If, for example, you are constrained on bandwidth, then you need to think about what is the minimal amount of information we can get away with sending via the internet, so that we're not coming up against that particular constraint. So really all I'm saying is understand the context of your users, in this case the farmers, and the situation you have, and essentially design for the lowest common denominator. If you can't basically create something that addresses your desired that creates the desired outcomes whilst functioning within the constraints of your system, then you have to start to look at ways of either removing or changing those constraints, or maybe even considering whether it's possible to do what you're trying to do. As the other panelists I'm sure will say, ways you can change those constraints could involve adding additional technology, for example, as we're hearing earlier, satellite internet connectivity or whatever to get across those problems. But fundamentally, you have to understand what those constraints are and whether it is still possible to create some kind of solution that fits within those constraints.
I don't have much to add. I love the idea of searching for the constraints that will enable you the rest of it. It brings me back to the theory of constraints. The one thing that I would strongly consider here is you can start building your product with the users that you really want to have, and not in the first instance build for people who don't have the internet connection. So I reckon if there is like a segmentation of the problems that you can approach with. And the other thing, in principle, building hardware products versus the software products, it's a very different ball game from the perspective of how difficult it is, how to keep them all in line, and so on. But I'm sure there is plenty of things that you, as the founders, could learn from, let's call it, automotive industry. And the moment the automotive industry becomes a car, just becomes a piece of software that drives on the road, a lot of things becomes enabled. The last thing in that kind of a system I would really strongly consider is how to monitor what is really going on in your system, no matter if you build it distributed or not, because I can imagine plenty of founders calling you and saying, it doesn't work on field 75, what's going on? And if you've got no answers for them because your system is offline, or if the system doesn't connect the information and you cannot recreate what's really going wrong, then you'll be in a customer service hell that occasionally our network or internet providers or other services are. So observability a lot for me would be something that I would almost like consider as the first thing. Can I know when something goes wrong, and maybe based on that figure out the constraints?
Interesting.
Last but not least, Martin, please.
Yeah, interesting information already. So I would look at six different aspects to make a decision. First of all, the data volume. Are we talking here about simple sensors like a humidity sensor or temperature sensor or something else that is inside the ground? Or are we looking at cameras that take high definition images of like fields? So if the data volume is very high, you might have to actually do local processing. If it's very low, you might or you might not have to, because cloud now is an answer. So you don't want a data tsunami going into the cloud of like thousands of like high definition cameras if you can process them locally and just validate that there's no new information. So ignore. And the next one is cost. If you have to do on-premise validation of any of the data and run models, that's going to be a lot more expensive than if you can get just the data and then do it in the cloud, provided that like the data volumes aren't too big. So hardware is really expensive, especially as some already said. If you have to do large language models or any of the latest tech where you need GPUs or TPUs or any of the specific AI chipsets, those things are very expensive. And there's also a hardware availability issue. So even if your business case, and that's one of the other aspects, doesn't sustain that like expensive hardware is used, well, is the hardware available? Can everybody get it everywhere in the world, and so on? Then connectivity is another one. Several methods were already mentioned, from LoRa to Starlink type of satellite or whatever. Again, this depends very much how much data you have to send. If it's a soil sensor for humidity, then like that is probably then better to just use something like LoRa, send it to the cloud and do it there. If it's video, then like you'd have to use something like Starlink probably, and as such you might want to do like expensive processing already on site, because these things are expensive to set up. Then the last two ones are response time. Do you want like something to happen immediately? Then on-site is very important. So if you need millisecond response times because there is like some thing happening locally, then you need to do it locally. That is probably not so much important for this use case. So in that sense, cloud is still a possibility. And then everything else falls with the business case. Is there a return on investment? Do farmers want to pay for expensive equipment? If they don't, you might not even have a question to ask here. and only cloud might be your only option.
Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. We'll go through to another question, which I've put in the chat, but I'll read it out loud. And by the way, just a reminder to those of you that have just tuned in to the live streams, this is Startup Product and Tech Q&A. It's our 176th session, and we're here to help you build your early stage from, let's say, product roadmap to prototype, MVP, and anything else in between or beyond for that matter. We've only got 9 minutes to go, so perhaps after this question, only time for one more question. In case you want to ask our panelists, you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams, and the quickest way to do that is go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 176. You click join. It's a quick registration on Luma, and there you'll be able to find the link for the Microsoft Teams call. And being audio only, it means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. So the question is, sorry, this is question 4, not 3. Never mind. Fintech founder, based in London. We're at seed stage. I am a chartered accountant. Problem: we're building a platform that offers financial literacy tools and low-fee investment options for women. We're trying to create a platform that feels personalized and approachable for female investors. Should we focus more on developing financial content tailored to women, or prioritize creating a community building feature? What's the best way to ensure the app feels different from existing investment tools whilst maintaining credibility? Right, let's see. Eugenio, did you already leave, or are you still with us? I think Eugenio's left. So maybe we can start with Jock, then Martin, and last but not least, Pavel, please.
I have to admit, this question started my spider sense tingling slightly. And the reason why is it reminded me of like the 2012 Bic Biro that was designed for her, that just created an absolute PR disaster because it was just really patronizing. And I'm not suggesting for a moment, I don't know whether you're a male or female founder. I don't know kind of where the rationale is for coming at this to provide a more female friendly.
It's a male founder,
right?
At least the message was sent from a male. So I tried to look them up on LinkedIn. I couldn't find any, or
okay.
I couldn't find much stuff. So it seems that they're not public yet. But this message came from a male person, and I'm assuming he's a founder or a co-founder.
Okay. I mean, again, I can't speak to, not knowing who you are and, whether, again, you have female co-founders or anything else. So I don't really know kind of what your, I guess, ideological standpoint is coming towards this. So really my overriding question would be, to what extent are the investing habits of women significantly different from men in the first place? Are you really... If the goal is just to make investing more understandable and easy to get to grips with, I'm not entirely sure how the male-female split would come in. So I would just counsel caution as to whether or not this is a fundamentally good idea. Maybe test out the concept before investing a significant amount of your time and effort and money into this, to figure out whether this is something that actually is a good idea with your intended target audience, and be open-minded to the responses you get.
Yes, so I also, from the description, can't understand what's the problem that the customers have. So again, if there's listeners and you have a question, come and join us, because we love to ask you questions. And here, the first question is, what's the problem that your customers are saying they have, for which any existing investment tools aren't adequate? because if there's no such problem, you might actually be building. Hopefully, they come and then find out they don't come. Now, in the past, I worked on a similar use case, but it was for young parents. So, are there investment tools specifically for parents? So, what we did there was not necessarily look at like, hey, can a parent do investments in stock and ETFs and so on, but more, is there like a market for parents to open a JISA for their children and then have like family, friends, the grandmother, the uncle, the aunt, able to like gift into that JISA so that like the children get more savings and then the parents can invest those savings into like stock markets trackers and stuff like that. So by the time they're 18, a lot of money is generated. If it's that type of thing, yes, that could be interesting. But then we're not talking about women only. We're talking about parents. But yeah, we need more information to help you exactly tell you what to do here.
Here. Pavel, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I have to admit with the guys before, I think unless we hear from the audience that you're trying to kind of target this at, it's a very, very tricky to be patronizing and advice on that. Like I can consider taking this question totally outside of woman or not woman and so on, and just look at the part about what I would consider in any application outside of the kind of the female investor space of personalized versus community driven advice on anything, right? So it's like let's not discuss the female part here. And if I was like really thinking about would I advise building personalization, or would I advise first building the community that helps out the person? I think in most of the scenarios, I would probably go for community aspect of it. So it's like at this moment, personalization done really well is useful, but we as the humans are very untrustworthy, especially early when this personalization feels almost intrusive or almost too much. So that would be for me the first thing. Even though, like 80% of the shows we watch on Netflix are recommended to us by recommendation engines rather than by the community. So my kind of a first point of view would be probably consider community first over personalization, because we love to follow, we love to be the part of shared responsibility. We trust imitation, and I think this comes from like all of those, like eToro follows someone else's trading patterns to win. Like I think there is something in community building or trusting others to do this. I think the community scales like the confidence of people. So it's like, okay, there is someone else, they are a human, they are like me, I can find the connection there. So outside of what this problem is, and I think that the guys mentioned this correctly, I like the community aspect of it more than personalization, even though the funny thing is you can put chat GPT and call it personalization tomorrow, and it's an easy thing to do, versus building the correct, trustworthy, well-vetted, well-behaving community is just much, much harder. But yeah, that would be my general advice, but I would be cautious about building this in principle.
Thank you very much, Steve. Here's my quick 2 pence on this. Number one, I've learned that one of the best things to do in startup land is to obviously try to find a solution to a problem rather than the other way around. And once you do that, you have a much better chance at succeeding if you're working on something that you are very well versed or best versed, rather tthan something you don't know much about, and 2, something that you're passionate about. And the reason why those two bits are important is that the more you know about something, the more likely to avoid mistakes that can be deadly you are. And two, the more passionate you are about something, the less likely to give up when, storms come your way. And in startup land, storms always are coming at your way. So that's important. But that doesn't mean that, a man, if you are a sole founder, a man can't come up with products or services that are solely targeted to women. So just the idea is make sure that you know what you're doing. Now, in terms of how you do this, and the chaps here have all three kind of touched on these matters, but I think it's important. If you deal with a community, you'll be able to learn much more in terms of what you can personalize. And I think, as Pavel touched on, although he didn't say this explicitly, maybe you can find a way to do both, i.e., use the power of AI and various algorithms to personalize what you learn from a community and do that simultaneously. But definitely community first. If you had to pick one, it's probably your best bet initially. With that in mind, we are 1 minute over the line, so I'm not going to keep these three gentlemen any longer. But if you have time for some parting words, I'd appreciate it. So perhaps Jock, Martin, and Pavel, what are your parting words for us today?
I think the overriding theme is understand the people who you believe have a valuable problem that you can solve. Understand who they are, what their context is, and later on, that there are going to be enough of them to justify your investment in solving that problem for them.
In general, for a startup, the hardest thing to do nowadays is no longer build a solution. AI has helped that. You can do vibe coding and anything else. So the hardest thing is selling your solution. So why don't you start with that? Try to sell it even before you have it. People could pre-order, could sign a letter of intent or whatever, so that you know that customers are waiting for something, because then you can design it with their input and their feedback, and your product and your success will be so much better.
Yeah, I agree with the guys. Technology kind of has almost never been the problem, or at least over the last X amount of years. It's not a problem at this moment. Deeper understanding of the problem and deeper understanding of ability to sell it is. So keep chasing that, and keep talking to us. Learning is very, very powerful thing, and we should all be optimized towards this, and learning together is even more fun. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. Please take care.
Well, thank you very much to all three of you gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Right here, couple of quick things before my parting words. Number one, this was Startup Products and Tech Q&A, our 176th session. We run 6 Q&As in total, seeking to help you go from startup to scale up with on-demand tailored advice that works for you. And the way we do that is by inviting the kind of people that you saw here today, people who've been there and done it. So, we're talking successful founders, savvy investors, and seasoned operators. Now, we also have some groups on WhatsApp where you can connect with these operators and experts, but also fellow founders. And you can do that by going to our site, startuptoscaleup.club. So again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. Top and bottom of the site, there are some WhatsApp icons you can click and join. And speaking of our site, this is how you can also RSVP and register to any future session we have. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can register via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. As far as my parting words, remember this journey of yours in startup can be quite a challenging one, but also quite exciting. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Growth Q&A. Have a great afternoon and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.